Hello and welcome back to the Unemployed Movie Critic YouTube channel. It's me, Maya. I'm back. Today, I will be talking about Grave of the Fireflies, the Studio Ghibli film from 1988. This is going to be a sad video, a real bummer of a video. It's a very good film. It's excellent, and it kind of brings to mind a lot of current events that I wanted to talk about as well, but it's a bummer video featuring topics of death and war. So if you don't want to watch that, I wouldn't watch this video if I were you. Grave of the Fireflies came out from Studio Ghibli in 1988. It's one of their first films. I think it's maybe their second film after My Neighbor Totoro. It's based on the 1967 semi-autobiographical short story by the same name by Akiyuki Nosaka. It is one of the few Studio Ghibli films not produced by Hayao Miyazaki. I think I said that right. Several critics call Grave of the Fireflies an excellent anti-war film, but the director Takahata actually has disputed this claim, which I will try to link some sources below about why he doesn't consider it that, which is interesting. So, a brief summary of Grave of the Fireflies. The film opens telling us that the main character, Seita, will die. I think that's how we pronounce his name. His little sister says his name a lot, and she kind of has like a little baby voice, so I feel like I might be saying it wrong, but Seita. So we know he's gonna die. It opens in the train station. He says on, September of 1945, I think he says, "I died." And we see he's in a train station, he's dying of starvation, and the people around him, don't really pay attention to this. It's pretty commonplace. So one of the, I think he's like maybe a janitor or a policeman in the train station. He walks by. He's like, well, here's another one. Looks like he's probably going to die soon, so I guess I'll probably just leave him alone. So it's pretty common, and then he does die. And we see that he is reunited with a little girl who we learn is his little sister. Her name is Setsuko. So it kind of tells us, it wastes no time telling us that the main characters that we are going to fall in love with are going to die, and it's going to be sad. So let's cut to the main, timeline of events. So Setsuko, the little girl, and her brother Seita are living in their home, which is in Kobe, Japan, and they are fleeing their home. They're talking to their mom, and their mom's like, all right, I'm gonna go to this shelter, you take your sister over here, we'll meet up later. And very soon into the film, we learn that she dies. So at first, she's gravely injured. He gets to safety with his sister. He runs into a family friend, and she's like, your mom is in critical condition. He goes to visit her in this makeshift hospital, and it's a very gruesome scene where she's covered in bandages and she has bugs crawling all over her. The doctor even tells him it's worse because it's really hot outside. So you really get this awful feeling. You know exactly that it's just it's gross. It's terrible conditions. It's hot, sweaty, bugs all over the place. And she very soon dies. So we don't see her death, but we see that Seita's carrying around a box with her ashes in it, and she was put onto a mass funeral pyre where she was cremated with a bunch of other people. Pretty gruesome. So he hides this fact from his sister and his aunt. So they go to live with their aunt because they don't have anybody else to live with. Their dad is in the Japanese Navy. He's fighting in the war. So they have to go live with the aunt. And eventually he tells the aunt, and we don't know this right away, but the aunt does eventually tell his little sister Setsuko, who he's been trying to keep it a secret from. It is very sad throughout the film, especially while they're at the aunt's house. Setsuko just breaks out in tears, and she's, very traumatized, and that's something the aunt kind of doesn't understand. The aunt is a huge jerk about it for some reason. Her kids are both in the military helping the war effort, and she's just like, Seita, why don't you get your little sister to shut up and stop crying about her dead mom already? Which is, I don't know why she's such an asshole about it. And soon they start to get fed up with the aunt, especially Seita. So, I will say the aunt is a jerk. And it's interesting, I was talking to my partner about this, and he talks about it kind of is a common trope in anime that there's some older relative that's just like a jerk for no reason and is like, why don't you go get a job and contribute to society? So I don't know if that's just kind of like a common trope in films or if it does kind of reflect part of Japanese society. I know that culturally Japan is just a little bit more rigid than in the United States. So maybe adults over time, maybe especially in the past, in the 40s when this film would have taken place, maybe adults really did act that way. And to be fair, honestly, to the aunt, Seita is like, he could help out a little bit more. He is just a little boy. He's probably 13 or 14, I think I read, but he could help out a little bit or be like a little bit more appreciative. So I understand why she's frustrated, but she doesn't need to be that frustrated. She's like being over the top. So they get fed up with her. And so one night during an air raid, during like a big firebombing spree, Seita takes Setsuko. They go off to this shelter. It's like an abandoned mine shaft. And they go hide out there while the bombs are going on. And then he's like, you know what? I think we should just stay here. Me and you. I'll take care of you. I don't want to go back to live with our aunt because she's just a jerk. So most of the film follows them kind of just going about their lives in this shelter. We get a lot of really sweet, touching moments of the two siblings just kind of just playing and frolicking around outside. It's interesting. I'll get to this later, but it's interesting how Ghibli films really focus a lot on nature, and you can really see that in this kind of short time period where they're happy. Things don't go well, things go bad soon, but they, are taking care of each other. It's very sweet and touching, and they're kind of just enjoying their childhood, which is really kind of eerie. You get this eerie feeling because you know that the war is going on around them and that things are not going well for them personally or for the country. And yet, time after time, Seita tries really hard to make sure his sister has a happy childhood, and that's very touching. So anyways, things become worse and worse. They're having a really hard time getting food. I don't think they can qualify for rations. I don't think, because I know their aunt was getting rations, but it doesn't seem like when Seita goes out to get food that he's getting rations. Or maybe he is, and I just kind of missed that part. But it just seems like they are constantly scrummaging for food. I hope I said that right. So in the one scene, he's stealing tomatoes and he goes to steal a bunch of vegetables and things from this farmer, and the farmer calls the cops on him. Crazy. Why would you call the cops on a starving child? But that's what he did. So he's really struggling to get food, and his sister soon becomes extremely malnourished. So he takes her to the doctor. He finds out that she's malnourished. He's like, the only thing to treat this is you got to feed your sister. So in the end of the film, Seita goes to the bank. He pulls out money from his mother's account, and he learns that the war is actually over, that Japan surrendered. This is taking place during World War II, if I didn't mention that. And he's like, what happened to the Japanese Navy? And they're like, I don't know. They probably died. So he finds out he's an orphan. He takes the money to go buy some food. He goes back to see his sister, and she is about to die. And then he tries his best. He tries hard in vain to make her a meal, but she dies before she's even able to eat the meal. And really, that is where the film ends. And I told you the whole plot, but I promise I didn't even spoil it. It's so much different when you actually watch the film, and it's so effective. The way that the children talk and look and the circumstances that they find themselves in. It's a very effective film. So I promise, even though I told you exactly what's going to happen, I didn't spoil the film for you. It will still have an impact on you. So, some background. Starvation was actually a huge issue in Japan during World War II, as well as other European countries, and Japan faced, a big brunt of that as well. Certainly America and England felt the effects with rations. I think in America have a pretty knowledgeable understanding of rations, especially after the Great Depression, we saw a lot about that as well. So I feel like Americans were probably pretty prepared for rationing again. And we know that women had to turn in their nylons to make parachutes for the war, and any scrap metal was donated. We understand what that looked like in America, but in other countries, it was much more severe, especially with food rationing. So Operation Starvation was an American operation to disrupt shipping to Japan, and frankly, it worked very well. So it is estimated that around 1 million deaths in Japan were due to starvation. So Seita and Setsuko dealing with malnutrition is definitely a realistic portrayal of what happened during World War II, and it is based on a somewhat true story as well, so definitely it's historically accurate. It was very interesting for me to see just how historically accurate it was for an animated cartoon. I thought that was just a little bit interesting to me. I also just wanted to talk about briefly, I don't know if it ties in, to me it does, but propaganda is just so effective. We see in World War II especially how propaganda is very effective at making the enemy seem like not human. So obviously we understand that from the Nazi point of view. I'm sure we've all seen in school the Nazi propaganda against Jews of drawing Jewish people as monsters or witches or even vampires, which I talked about in my Nosferatu video, which I thought was pretty interesting. Especially rats, they're tied in with vermin a lot, or spreading disease, which is obviously very upsetting. So we understand what it looked like from their side, and something that really I learned a lot in college through my kind of media and broadcasting classes was that America also participated in propaganda. Propaganda, the word, isn't necessarily bad, but it's definitely trying to push an idea on you. And so if we think about it that way, during the time, America also did a really good job with propaganda about World War II, and especially, I think, against the Nazis. We did a really good job at making Hitler and the Nazis seem like evil scum, and they are. So, I mean, hey, we weren't wrong. But I think we also forget that when we think about our enemy, we don't usually tend to think about one person. We tend to think about it as the whole country, which is pretty unfair. So Germany was our enemy at the time. And so in propaganda, I feel like it was very successful at making Germans or Japanese seem like the enemy, when really the people themselves are not the enemy. The country isn't really the enemy. It's just the leaders of those countries that are the enemy. It really ties into what the rest of my opinions are about this film, that we forget when we go to war, we're not fighting country against country. We're fighting people against people, and even people who don't want to be part of the conflict, who didn't sign up to be in the military, who are just random innocent people. We're fighting them too. So briefly, some of my opinions about this film. As always in all Ghibli films, the art is very beautiful. I definitely think I saw a little bit of a difference between this film and later films by Studio Ghibli. So, for example, Howl's Moving Castle, which to me is really an elaborate animation. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot of scenery, and it's very beautifully drawn. This, is also very beautifully drawn, but I think Grave of the Fireflies has a slightly different style, and I think that also might be because Miyazaki isn't on this film. So I think maybe Miyazaki's little flavor, his translation of Ghibli films really makes them what they are in our, I guess, popular understanding of them. Usually when I watch Ghibli films, I'm like, oh my God, there's so much detail in these backgrounds, and it's because they're beautifully hand painted. So maybe that was a little bit of a difference too. It's definitely, you can still tell it's a Ghibli film. They have this language that they use, but I wanted to note that. And I also just wanted to note again about the beautiful backgrounds. There is something about this film in particular, and I guess maybe all Ghibli films, that really taps into this childhood nostalgia and the childhood imagination, because it's lush. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous scenery. And I know Miyazaki has talked about before that it really enjoys showing off the beautiful natural environment of Japan. And he's also like an environmentalist. He talks a lot about conserving the environment. Howl's Moving Castle has themes about environmental conservation, caring about the environment, loving where you come from and taking care of, our natural resources. And I think that creeps into this too, but more for me, it just feels like childhood. And I think it's because when you're a child, everything looks more vibrant and beautiful to you. Everything looks really exciting. And even though we know we're in the middle of a war in Grave of the Fireflies, the background, when things are good, looks absolutely gorgeous. And we see Seita and Setsuko hanging out outside, playing around, being kids, going to the beach, having fun. And it just feels so much more fun and nostalgic and a beautiful childhood memory because of how beautiful the backgrounds are. It's lush and gorgeous. And I think it's also a very good reminder for us, probably subconsciously, that this is a real beautiful country with real people. And we destroyed that beautiful, gorgeous, natural culture. We destroyed that in the war. Like, that is completely, I mean, the background is something I think we don't think about often. And I know even for me, as like a film person who learned mise-en-scène, because I am that annoying film friend who drops language, but I really noticed this for the first time, and it really means something to me in this film more than like most other films that I watch. I don't know if that's making me a bad film critic, but I really noticed it a lot in Ghibli films. And I think also this film, in the way it's animated, is so good at being upsetting. So at the same time as it makes you feel this beautiful nostalgia and these beautiful childhood memories, it's also deeply disturbing to me. And it does so without being gory, which I also just really appreciate. Seita's mother covered up in bandages. That's a very gruesome scene. Later in the film, when Setsuko is at the doctor, she pulls up her shirt and you can see her ribs, and she's really skinny and she's starving. And that was very disturbing. It made me it made me grimace out loud when I saw it. That was very effective. And even though I wouldn't say the bombings were necessarily scary to witness, it was very tragic the way it was shot and the way it was animated. It was very it felt very monumental every time that it happened. And that's what I think makes it so effective. And even just really small little details like Seita carrying around this wooden box with his mother's ashes in it. We know exactly what's in the box and nobody has to tell us. And just him, the simplicity of it almost is so sad. I can't remember if I saw this on Letterboxd or if I saw it in an article about this film when I was doing my research, but animation is really often overlooked as a genre. And I think it's because children's films are animated. Most children's films are animated. And it shows you that animated films have an impact, and they can make you cry, not just because it's a sweet story about children. Like, it doesn't make you cry like Inside Out makes you cry. It makes you cry because it's really tragic and it really hurts to watch. And I think often we overlook animation that way. And I think maybe more so in America because anime is so much bigger and has been around for so much longer in Japan. Maybe it's taken a little bit more seriously there, but at least that's kind of how I think people think about it in America. And you know what else? It also kind of reminds me of Perfect Blue in a weird way, because I just rewatched that recently, which is also a really great film. But Perfect Blue is a very adult film, and it works as an animated film more so almost than I think that it would work as a live action film. Perfect Blue really works because it's about what happens to real life celebrities when we put them in certain situations. And it would be hypocritical to put a real life person in that situation. And I think especially it's just kind of nice, I think sometimes, that in animation, you don't have to put a real person into upsetting situations. Like, we don't need to exploit real women and show off their real life boobies and show them, getting brutalized in real life. We can see that in an animation, and it's a lot better in a way. And I don't want to say that that should never be in a film, because I think films call for graphic details sometimes, but I also just think it's a little bit much sometimes, and I don't always I don't like that we put actors into that situation necessarily, if that makes sense. And I don't know if it's a weird view for me, but I think it works better animated, and I can't imagine Grave of the Fireflies as a live action film. It almost wouldn't be as good, because I think sometimes we have to appreciate animation as its own art form, and not everything that's animated needs to be a live action. And I hope Disney's listening to this and they take some cues. Lilo and Stitch. To me, in Ghibli films, there's always a little bit of an element of confusion. And I don't know if that's a language barrier thing, or things get lost in translation, or it could just be a culturally different thing too. So there might be some things in Japanese culture that I just don't pick up as somebody who's been born and raised in America their whole lives. So that could very well be the case. But to me, often when I watch a Ghibli film, there's always something in the movie that makes me go, I don't know why they did that. That was weird. And I think especially in Ponyo, I really felt that the most. Not that I didn't appreciate it. It was still a sweet story, and it was really nice, and I liked it. But it's definitely my least favorite Ghibli film, and to me the most confusing Ghibli film. It's not that I couldn't follow the plot, but just things happen, or like sometimes the way characters said things, or the things that they said were just like odd to me. Sometimes there's always this layer of that in Ghibli films, and I felt it a little tiny bit in Grave of the Fireflies. There are some things that happened that I don't really understand how they why they happened, and maybe it's more clear if you understand the Japanese language and the Japanese culture. Maybe it makes a little bit more sense to you. But some of those things were like, why did Seita's aunt abandon him? Because that's her dead sister's children. So Seita's like, I'm moving out, and the aunt's like, okay. And she is a little bit worried about it, but she doesn't stop them. So that was super weird. Why would she get mad at Seita when Setsuko cried? She's the little girl, and she's going through mental anguish. Her mother died, and her house was ruined. Obviously, she's upset. And why did the aunt expect Seita to do all these adult things all the time? But at the same time, like I was saying earlier, I don't know why Seita didn't help wash the dishes, or why he wasn't a little bit more appreciative that his aunt took him in. She could have thanked him. He could have tried to do some things around the house. Especially you get a little bit frustrated with Seita, because later in the film, you think to yourself, why didn't he take out his mother's money so much earlier? He could have bought a lot more food a lot earlier in the game. He could have, been providing for his sister and getting real food instead of just running around trying to eat stolen vegetables. And they could have been getting real nutrition, and this wouldn't be a problem. So I often thought, at the end of the film, he goes to pull out the rest of the money. I'm like, why didn't you do that so much earlier? Why did you wait for so long to do that? And most frustratingly, why didn't he go back to live with his aunt? He knew that his sister was starving. We could see that she was unwell. The doctor was like, you need to feed your sister. And he even ran into this man. I think he's on a rice paddy, and he was asking for rice. And he's like, honestly, you should just ask your aunt for forgiveness and go back to live with her, because you can't make it on your own. And it's frustrating, but then you have to stop and remind yourself that it's kind of the point. He's a little boy, and children are not supposed to make rational decisions. So it all has a purpose. He's foolish. Seita's foolish. He does foolish, childlike things, but we can't expect children to make the right choices. And it's wrong to put children into situations where they do have to make those adult choices. And that's why war is evil, among other reasons. It's because it strips children of their innocence, and it puts children into positions that they should never have to conceive of, ever. It's like when it's like if you were to leave a kid alone in their house for a week while you go on vacation, and then they get really sick because all they ate is candy. Of course all they ate is candy, but that's not really their fault. It's your fault, because you're a grown-up and you're supposed to be taking care of them. It's the same reason. Yeah, Seita did foolish things, but he should never have been displaced from his family because of war in the first place. It's not his fault. Even though it's almost hard to square that in your mind when you're watching the film, because you're like, Seita, just go to your aunt's house, like go get your sister help. But we have to realize he's 13, and 13-year-olds love to be independent. Children love to be grown-ups, even though they don't understand what it means to actually make grown-up decisions. And we see in this film over and over again just how much Seita loves his sister. And I kind of am a sucker for any kind of sibling storyline, because I love my brother, and I think having a sibling is a beautiful thing. So we see that Seita hides the fact that his mother is dead for as long as he can from his sister, and he's very sad. And it's very sad to watch when his little sister says, yeah, I know that mom died, our aunt told us. And it was really animated very well, the facial expressions of Seita when he learns that he knows that their mother is dead, and he lies again and says, she's buried in a really beautiful place. One day we'll visit it, but we know that she is ashes now. He also takes her to the beach. He buys her candy. When the candy tin is empty, he even tries to make her like flavored water out of it. He's just a sweet boy who loves his sister very much, and he tries to lift her spirits at every single turn, and he goes to lengths to feed her. Even though he's unsuccessful, he still does whatever he can think of. Even though he's a child, he does whatever he can think of to take care of his sister and to feed her. It just shows you how beautiful a sibling bond is. And again, every time something is beautiful and sweet in this movie, it's to remind us that people should not be put into war. People should not be put into these situations, and that being a human being is a beautiful experience that should not be interrupted by something completely preventable. It is very interesting to see World War II through the lens of a different country, because I know about it through America's side. I think we learn a lot in America about what it was like on the German side through Hitler's point of view, but we don't really understand what that looked like in other countries and how other people were really suffering. And you know what? America did have a good reason for entering World War II. So, you know, we were attacked first, to be fair, not cool. And Jewish people were in a genocide. People were being killed. So we had a good reason, and we are on the right side of history. But again, that doesn't take away from the fact that German and Japanese people alike, they do not represent their leaders, just like I don't represent Donald Trump. Whatever he decides to do doesn't have anything to do with me. I didn't do that. And again, it's not country against country, government against government. It's weapons against people. It's weapons against ways of life and culture. And it is people against children and starvation against children. And kind of a stark reminder of this is when Seita is told that the war has ended, and it's kind of goofy, and it almost kind of made me laugh. He's like, you mean the great nation of Japan lost the war? And it kind of just reminds you, he has no idea about what's going on. He has no context for the war, why they entered the war, why his dad is in the military. He doesn't understand any of that. He's just a child like all of us were, who, you know where you live, you know what side you're on, you know what you're doing, and that's all you're focused on. All Seita is focused on is living to see his father come home and taking care of his sister, and none of the rest of the war, the politics, none of that matters to him. And also, interestingly, I was thinking that the film doesn't even mention Hiroshima or Nagasaki, even though we know that that's how the war ended effectively in the US. That's not even mentioned in the film, and the war is kind of just the backdrop for the film. It's rarely mentioned almost. We know that's the context of what's happening, but it is not about each side of the war, who's good or bad in the war. It's about how war affects people, obviously. And obviously, I think everybody can agree, as long as you're not a terrible asshole person, that war is evil and that war should be avoided. And I think we say that, but then when it comes to it, I think the thing that's so upsetting to me is people are always like, well, you know, the war going on over here in this country, oh, I guess it has to happen for this and this. But I'm like, yeah, but do you realize people are dying, and not just people in the military, innocent people? Or when America, or when, you know, our leadership, our presidents in the past have bombed countries, we're not bombing a country to get power. We think about it and it's framed so much in the news that we did this because we had to. We did this because we were being threatened by so-and-so and so-and-so. But kids died. Like, children die all the time from bombings. And every time we drop a bomb, innocent people will die. And I really do not care for anybody, any world leader, and ever, including our own presidents, including presidents in the past that I voted for. I don't care what they have to say. Anytime they drop a bomb, innocent people will die. And that is something that all of us should think about every time our president dares to do anything, or anytime we dare to get into conflict with somebody or join a war, that we are killing innocent people. It's not our nation against theirs. It's not a victory because we got this, or it's not revenge for so-and-so and so-and-so. Innocent people will die. And that is something that should really frame how we think about our world leaders, because that could be us. What if we died? What if tomorrow Russia got mad at us, and instead of getting mad at the US, the president, they killed me and you and your kid and your dog? And I think the film is very unrelenting, and that's a good thing, because almost at any moment I could feel like I was gonna cry. And I think it's good because it should remind viewers, the point is that we need to be very critical of our leaders, because they're putting people in danger when they do these things. And so, kind of, to me, Grave of the Fireflies shows me three different main things. So it kind of shows, on the side of Japan, that Japan's involvement in the war was kind of unnecessary. We can kind of see that in retrospect, just like how I think in the US we can see in retrospect our involvement in the Vietnam War or in World War I was also kind of unnecessary. We didn't need to endanger people like that or put Americans' lives at risk, but we did it for reasons that were not really that great or noble, honestly. So I think for Japan it shows, I mean, if you didn't know, I did a little bit of research. Japan entered World War II over, like, land, which is stupid. Japan entered the war. My very unnuanced answer is because they wanted dominance. They were struggling economically after the Great Depression. They wanted more natural resources. They wanted to be a world power like the US. And they were mad at the League of Nations. And so that's why they joined the war, which is not a very good reason for joining the war. And then, on contrast, in the US, like I was saying, we joined the war because we were bombed first and we were trying to save the Jews. Probably we joined because we were bombed first, and the saving the Jews was an afterthought, but still pretty good side to be on, frankly. It also shows Americans that when we entered World War II, on our side, we were like, we're entering World War II for good reasons. And sure, we did. But war still kills people, and America is not the hero in every story. I think a lot of American films about war, especially, show some kind of hero or some kind of noble cause, or America is the good guy and we had to do these things, and also kind of glorifies violence as like, this had to be done because we need to save the people. But again, no matter how you swing it, violence still will kill innocent people. It's not just soldier against soldier. And so it shows Americans that we are not the hero all the time. Sometimes you do good things, or sometimes you have to square the good with the bad. But in the eyes of other countries, we are not the hero. We're not, because we killed other people in other countries and we dropped bombs on other countries. And it also shows all of us collectively why war should be avoided as much as possible. War is evil, and we should be extremely critical of our nations and our leaders for engaging in war. They better have a damn good reason for entering the war. It better not be land or natural resources, because innocent lives are at risk for those stupid things. We better enter the war because we want to prevent a genocide, or we need to protect our nation. Those better be the only reasons why we ever enter a conflict with anybody. And I think in America, I think we need to realize that often we are lied to about why we are doing certain things. Oh, we entered the war because we needed to protect our nation against communism, not because we wanted natural resources. You know what I'm saying? You should be critical of your elected official, even if you voted for them. I didn't vote for Barack Obama because I was too little. In my imagination, Barack Obama was a pretty good president, but he still killed thousands of innocent people in the Middle East. And that is just true. And you have to be grown up about it enough to realize that even if outside in the United States you think policy-wise somebody's doing a good job, or you think as a person even they're a nice person, I'm sure Barack Obama is a nice person, but people died because of him. And that is something that you always have to think about. And I'm not trying to say one person is more evil over another, but I know being the president is a hard job. I don't know what I would do if I was the president and I had to make these decisions, these diplomatic decisions about when are we going to enter the war, who's going to send weapons, who's going to drop bombs. I don't think I can make those decisions, but I don't think that means that we should not be critical of everything that our leaders do. You should criticize everything that your leader does, because it's evil and wrong sometimes. And not only will it affect us, the American people, but it's just an evil thing to do. So when we view war as an evil act that kills people, when we view it this way, it helps us understand more that the people affected by the war are not evil. Maybe the leaders of their countries are evil, but the people who live there, even if they have some kind of strange ideology, it's not good, but they are not evil people who deserve to die and whose families and children deserve to die, because children cannot be political. Children don't know anything about what's going on. They're just innocent people. So that is something we should always think about when we enter a war. Let's do a recap. Okay. What we are supposed to take from Grave of the Fireflies is that war affects real people, and children will be stripped of their innocence. Children will die. No matter who the good guy or the bad guy is, or what they're fighting for, no matter how noble, innocent people will die in war. So it reinforces the idea, again, to recap, that we should not go to war. No government should go to war without criticism. And no government can be innocent when it engages in war. And a country's people is not evil because their leader is evil. Let me ask you if this reminds you of something, okay? Now let's switch topics. Palestinians have been persecuted for decades by Israel. And even within the last 2 decades, there have been a lot of accounts, if you follow closely. Honestly, I know this because I follow Bella Hadid on Instagram, which is sad that I didn't hear about it in the news. But even a couple years ago, I remember Bella Hadid was posting about journalists who were being captured from Palestine, and mysteriously they ended up dead, or like innocent people in Palestine were being like shoved around by Israeli soldiers, displaced from their homes. Her father had to flee from his home country. And so we know that for decades in the aftermath of World War II, that Palestinians have been persecuted by Israelis, okay? And again, that doesn't mean that people who live in Israel or Jews are evil. That means Benjamin Netanyahu is evil. Israelis, of course, have been captured. They've been captured as hostages, they've been bombed, and people in Israel have died. Innocent people in Israel have died, okay? We know that. And the honest truth of the matter is that although that has happened, Israel's government has gone overkill in their retaliation towards Palestine. And that is, again, not the fault of the people. It is not anti-Jewish. It is not pro-terrorist. It is anti-Benjamin Netanyahu. In Palestine, the water supply has been cut off from people. Right now, the food supply is being cut off from people. And Israel has a whole lot of money. They get a lot of money from all over the world, and Israel is actually the largest recipient of U.S. aid, both in military and economic aid, of any other country. They receive the most aid from the United States of America, which I think I saw that Donald Trump, I think it's about 12 million from him. And again, if you want to think about it that way, we really sent $12 billion to Israel, but we can't spare $1 billion to save AmeriCorps. So if you're upset about money, perhaps you should be upset about somebody who's funding a war criminal. Anyways, Israel has been unrelenting in their attacks on Palestinians. Netanyahu has also been labeled a war criminal by the United Nations, which should tell you a whole lot. So according to the AP, the International Criminal Court has said that, quote, there is reason to believe Netanyahu and former defense minister Yoav Gallant have used starvation as a method of warfare by restricting humanitarian aid and have intentionally targeted civilians in Israel's campaign against Hamas in Gaza. Amnesty International's report demonstrates that Israel has carried out acts prohibited under the Genocide Convention with the specific intent to destroy Palestinians in Gaza. These acts include killings, causing serious bodily or mental harm, and deliberately inflicting on Palestinians in Gaza conditions of life calculated to bring about their physical destruction. Now, does that sound familiar to you? Because not only does that sound like Grave of the Fireflies, but it also sounds like something that happened in World War II between the years of 1939 and 1935. That's what it sounds like to me. I say all this because if you watch Grave of the Fireflies, you take away these messages. If you listen to anything or have any kind of soul, you should be extremely critical of our nation's involvement in the war again. And this time, it's not even our noble effort to save the Jews like we did in World War II. It's just because, well, Israel has been our ally in the past, so I guess it's okay that we donate a bunch of money to them so that they can commit genocide and kill a bunch of Palestinians who they haven't liked for a really long time anyways. And I guess it's okay that those children starve, are not getting medicine, are not getting treatment, and have lost limbs. And I guess it's okay that we're mad at Miss Rachel and we're calling her a terrorist. So I guess the conclusion of this video is something that I often conclude, that films are political. They just can't escape the landscape which they come from. So Grave of the Fireflies happened a generation after World War II. And that allowed the film to have this hindsight about Japan's involvement in the war, what the effects of that war was. And as we can see today, Japan is a very peaceful nation. They don't engage in a bunch of other hullabaloo. The film has a stance, a political stance, which is that war is evil, even if that's not what the director intended of the film, even if that's not what the writer intended of his book. That's what we take away, that war ruins the innocence of children and ruins the lives of many. And that the people who are affected are not the people who make the decisions, it's the innocents, right? When we watch a film, we're supposed to learn a lesson, and we're supposed to carry that lesson with us forever. It's supposed to be cathartic, it's supposed to teach us something, it's supposed to show us a mirror of life, and it's supposed to help us understand how to live our own lives. And so if you watch this film, I hope what you take away and what you understand from this film is that we should apply the same logic from the film to our real lives. That's what we are supposed to do, and that's what I think the filmmakers would want us to do. We are supposed to feel this very human connection to these characters, even though they're just animated characters. And if we can feel that compassion for animated children, we should feel that compassion for real life children who are being affected every day across the world. So, kind of a bummer video. Sorry for I don't know. I'm not trying to make light of anything sad. I'm just kind of trying to talk about it like I would talk about it to a friend. And there's some parts of this video that, and you have to realize the irony, and irony is kind of funny. So I hope that you kind of understand where I'm coming from with this film. I hope this video encourages you to do something, you can choose to not buy products from companies that donate a bunch of money to Israel. You can be critical of your government, which you should do anyways. You should speak up about that you're upset because it's evil and wrong to contribute to a war criminal. And you can donate money. I think sometimes money is the most powerful agent, and you can donate money to help people get food in Gaza, help people get out of Gaza, get out of Palestine. You can try to help these people as much as you can. So thank you for joining me for today's video. You know what? Next video, I'm gonna promise we're gonna do something fun. We're gonna do something silly. We're gonna laugh. We're gonna watch a funny little film, and we're gonna have a riot. We're gonna have a good time. We're not gonna talk about sad, depressing stuff anymore. So thank you for joining me. I look forward to seeing you next time. I look forward to hearing what you have to say. I really would like to talk to some people about Grave of the Fireflies, because the only other person I know who's seen it is my boyfriend, and I want to talk to people about it. So let me know your thoughts about this film and just your thoughts in general. Thank you for joining me.